Okay, so the big question that started me off on the first day, really with David Williams' presentations and a lot of the passion is we've known for so long that the problems we talked about at this forum are there, and yet we've done so little. And the question we have to engage is why? What is the barrier? What's in the way? And David Williams, in his brilliant talk, gave us a lot of ideas about that. And I'm not going to claim I know even a particle of what he really does, but these are some of the things that kept coming to the fore yesterday and today. I just was seized by Kellen Baker's opening remarks, especially his very first story. And he said, we don't know what to do with you, and we won't help you. That rejection, that kind of, it's not my thing, it's not my business, I'm not here for you, has got to be somehow fundamental, not just for transgender LGBTQ people, but maybe for some of the balls we've been dropping. We're turning away. And I'm trying to understand in these 2 days with my wonderful friends in this conference what's going on. I got an email overnight from Jeremiah White, who took us to task. Jeremiah wrote to me, Band-Aids no longer work. We need to eliminate this mentality that incremental change is the answer, not steps along the path. Boldness is required to think about what might have been unthinkable. And Jeremiah's call for boldness also stuck in my mind. A few other takeaways, gems from the conversation today. This reframe of inequity as harm, I think, is brilliant. I don't know if that's the first time it's come up. It's the first time I actually heard it framed that way, but we need to keep that. I love it because it unifies across the topics that could be silos. And then there's a tremendous consensus in this conversation today about that phrase of the genius of the local community, the respect for the idea that people who are there have the wisdom. It's not news to us, but it's been reaffirmed here in a really great way. Daniel Yang's comments a few minutes ago about a suite of interventions, trying to think more systemically, that building of connections came through for these 2 days a lot. And I actually had written about tensions in the slide before Don Schwartz mentioned it also, but I think there is this very interesting dialectic going on in these conversations about this respect for locality and the knowledge that we are, after all, a nation. There's another tension, which Don may have been alluding to, but it is between government action and non-governmental action. So the ethos of the ABIM Foundation and the forum is civil society. We have government officials here in this group, but there's a strong, whenever we say we tend to be meaning action in the civil society, not the governmental side. So these are some of the backgrounds to what the comments I'm going to give you. Now, I've inserted a few slides here, not from this meeting, but I think they resonated enough that I decided to put them in. So the first is to reaffirm, as this meeting has, that we don't just have a problem, we're losing traction. We're getting worse. This is a slide that I got from Michael Marmot, who is showing the life expectancy by year of birth this is for men, and poverty, inequity, deprivation are associated with far fewer gains in life expectancy over time. And this is a 30-year trajectory. For women, it's worse. Women in the lowest end of our economic spectrum have actually lost life expectancy in the 30 years that Marmot is here showing you. This is the horizontal axis is the year of birth. So people born in 1950 are now, 70 years old. This relates, I think, to the major point I want to make in these comments. This is loss of traction in child well-being. The United States ranks last among 20 nations in well-being of children. It also ranks last in redistribution of wealth. Child poverty rate in the US is the second highest in 35 nations in this 2012 report. It's the same data now. We're second only to Romania. And the reason is that other nations redistribute wealth. They look at people of disadvantage, the people that we've been talking about in many, many different garbs in this meeting for 2 days now, and they redress it. They move resources toward the people who have the least. Just today, this morning, Milbank carried this interesting paper, it's a correlational paper, not an experiment, obviously, relating progressivity of liberalism, progressivity of US state policies with life expectancy state by state. And we see the same phenomenology. Here is essentially redistributional policy by state. So the red bar is Oklahoma, which has had very anti-liberal policies in the 1958 to 2018 period, when Connecticut has progressively more liberal policies. I'll come to those in a second. And the life expectancy difference is 7 years. The correlational study shows the relationship between public policies that essentially redistribute good and life expectancy. The quote from the paper this morning is, among 10 policy domains with statistics significant association with life expectancy, a more liberal version of 8 domains was associated with longer lives: tobacco policy, immigration, civil rights, private labor, environment, gun control, LGBT, and abortion. Exceptions were marijuana and voting. It's a very deep paper with lots of appendices, and you may want to study this further. We had an interesting thing come up in the group I was in this morning with Matt Toby, group 21, Matt on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota, talking about conditions there related to inequity and, in this case, ethnic disparity. I asked Matt about funding. The Indian Health Service currently gets about $4,500 per year to spend per capita. The VA gets $9,000. My own state, Massachusetts, I think it's more than $11,000. That was Matt's memory of that. The Indian Health Service in this country estimates that it has less than half of the funding it needs to meet needs. So why am I beating up on this stuff? It's because there is a problem. It's a policy problem. It's not a local problem. It's not a non-governmental problem. It's a governmental problem. It has to do with our commitment to taking resources from people that have a lot and offering it to people that don't have a lot. This is the change in effective US tax rates between 1962 and 2018, also from Michael Marmot. Look at the bottom 50% of income earners in the country. Their tax rates have gone up in that 50-year period by about from 22.5% to 24%, while people in the top 1% went down from 51% marginal effective tax rate to 31%. The richest 400 went from 54 to 23%. We're redistributing opportunity in this country, and we've done it for 50 or 60 years. It's been more vicious recently, and it is behind a lot of the inequity that we're talking about. So let's go through where that brings me in my analysis. It has to do with what the nature of collective action really is. In this conversation, a wonderful conversation this past 2 days, we've talked about civil society, social movements, local control, people coming together to do really good things, and we can't stop that. That would be throwing away such abundance. And so we should celebrate every one of the topics that came up, every one of the actions that are coming in the non-governmental side. But I've come to believe, and I guess this meeting continues to give me that thought, that the political component of the collective action needed cannot be avoided. Without collective action through government, I don't think the civil society has the remedies in hand to execute the kind of change that Daniel and his team have allowed us to converse about in this meeting. Now that raises a level of discomfort, and it's come up in the chat over and over again, discomfort about politicizing healthcare. We're supposed to be hands-free, not nonpartisan, non-political, which isn't the same thing. I now have come to believe that we need to get over it. David Williams challenges us with data, with evidence, with science, showing that the relationship between the pursuit of health and well-being and equity, and trust, the topic of this meeting, involves the dismantling of structures of privilege and power. And he gives us chapter and verse on what that looks like. And each of the groups I was able to sit in on have the same conversation. This is not going to work unless wealth is redistributed in the country. The poor need more, and it has to come from the rich. And that has to do with poverty and wealth, not just with respect to money, it has to do with power. And I can take no lesson away from this meeting more profound that if power doesn't shift, I don't think we're going to get out of this closed loop. We will have this conversation over and over and over again. And I don't know another way to think of the shift of power other than through political action. So why don't we have trust? Why did Kellen tell us at the beginning that he doesn't trust anybody? because trust cannot survive inauthenticity. And so that I think you heard about the paper I wrote on moral determinants of health. I'm sorry for the narcissism here, but this logic's been in my mind for a while now, and the logic is we, the healthcare world, all of us, we need to turn toward moral compass to solve the problem here, because we have to use a basis for getting political. In that paper, I laid out an agenda for what we should work on, and the agenda you can see here. It's ratification of human rights treaties, achieving healthcare as a human right in the country, restoring our leadership in climate change, achieving reform of the criminal justice system, ending the travesties at our borders with the way we treat people whose sin is that they want to live here, ending hunger and homelessness in our nation, which a number of the projects that we're speaking about. And then all of this, to me, rests on restoring democratic institutions, the vitality of democratic institutions, including the right of every person's vote to count equally. I don't know if you know, but in the Electoral College, from the most powerful vote to the least powerful vote for American citizens, the ratio is 1 to 70. We have nowhere close to one person, one vote in this country. Now, here's where I'm going to close. I got a bold proposal. It actually pivots a bit off Emily Wang's idea, the bold idea number 18. So here's the pitch, and then we can go home. I think we should pick one of these. We, all of us, I mean all of us, I mean the entire American healthcare system as assembled by the American Board of Internal Medicine Foundation, and fix it. And the one I nominate is the criminal justice system. It kind of hits almost everything we're talking about. Ratios of black to white incarceration of 7 or 8 to 1, the new Jim Crow, the new form of lynching, 2.4 million people in our prisons, 70% of them have mental health or substance abuse problems. Why am I doing this? I'm doing it because I think that results generate trust, and we don't have the results. And so my bold proposal, and by the way, you could take this idea if you prefer and substitute another agenda, because I'm only talking about results on something important here. And so here's what I'd say. Let's stop talking and get a result. The American Board of Internal Medicine Foundation would lead and catalyze a national project with targets and accountability, pace and tempo, for the radical reform of the U.S. criminal justice system as its number one priority. Not its only one, but its first priority for 3 years. Every one of the next 3 ABIM Foundation forums would focus on criminal justice reform. 50% of all medical lobbying in the U.S. would shift from lobbying for more money to lobbying for criminal justice reform, beginning with the ABIM. We would develop and curate metrics and a monthly report on progress in partnership with media organizations, some of whom are represented in this room, this virtual room. And we would, of course, do this in partnership with relevant progressive reform organizations. Emily put out a component of it. So what do I mean by reform? Well, how about one thing would be transitions clinic networks everywhere, but that would be like 1% of the changes we would be after. So why have we known for so much for so long, but done so little? I don't think trust can survive that inauthenticity. I think if we really mean it about trust, we're going to have to get results, and we don't have them yet. So my proposal out of this action-oriented virtual meeting is let's pick something and get it done together.